You're live.
Yes,
You're live. So, Neeraj is on leave and we have Hiral joining us today.
Yes. Day 2 that I have the honor and the opportunity to be with Hersh because he never really looks at me for a BBB.
No. So
It's just day 2 from the day you started.
Day 2, that's a day 2 hai, theek hai. Anyways, markets are up, percent up. I think IT has recouped some of the losses because morning में जो 1% के आसपास गिरा था उससे आ गया, means come back. And Nifty Bank is again holding despite muted or bad numbers in some of the banks, right? Means आपका IDFC bank.
yeah, so sir, that kind of solidifies the thesis that the larger banks are doing better, right? If say for example there is the small and mid cap banks not doing well, then it kind of somewhere plays into the hands of the large cap banks where they are doing so well, kind of their outperformance shines even better despite that growth not being there. The kind of growth that you're seeing in the smaller banks is roughly double of that of the larger ones, but this kind of solidifies that thesis, and that seems to be playing out, and we've said this enough and more times that banks have been the defensive since September of 2024.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, it's not been pharma, it's not been FMCG,
It's been the banks.
So
I think it's the valuations and I think the trend of FIs who are coming in.
Correct.
Yet again, the usual trend, Sajeet, that I think we've seen is banks and IT. IT, I don't think so. That's the place they want to put in money. So I think the FIs also are coming back into the banking space.
7-8 dates positive FIs.
Exactly.
35,000 odd crores which has come.
So and the quantum of buying that would have come into banks, I think that it would have been way larger if you have to look at the delivery data also, right?
Delivery data mein to pura, I mean ICICI, HDFC, Axis,
and
they are top 3 actually.
Yeah, and it's ICICI and HDFC only are the ones who are pulling Nifty higher today as well from the banking space, right?
And Reliance.
Absolutely.
Reliance numbers came in on Friday night. Numbers were in line. Commentary was positive. That's what is I think pushing the stock higher.
But OTC is something which is a drag, right?
OTC will take couple of quarters.
I mean O2C, oil to chemicals, just for the viewers. Yeah,
it's going to take a couple of things. Retail, I think, is stabilizing. Their restructuring is over. That's what they are saying. And Jio has been able to increase the top line, but the margins are not so impressive because despite the tariff hike, 2 tariff hikes they had. I don't think my margins have come in. What is interesting is that they started off their HGT plant, which is the solar module plant, which is the 1 gigawatt, and they have to take it up to 10 or so over the next 12 to 18 months. So that's one thing which is new energy which is coming on stream. That's also pulling, and I think they had the first physical meet with analysts after 5 years.
5 years.
So there is some rub-off happening. Numbers in line, pretty much in line.
And that's also likely because of the demerger, right? Which will happen because they want to be more engaged with analysts while they are considering a demerger of the Reliance business, right?
It's either a demerger or an IPO, whichever is the one they haven't spoken about it.
Either way. But point
demerger
is
is
that
I think currently probably it will be the mood check with the analyst as to how are they weighing in the demerger or the IPO that could be coming in.
So I think in the last 3 to 6 months it's gone up by 6 to 10%, but on a 12-month basis it's still down.
It's a drag. It's a drag.
Yeah, it's a drag. It's still 6% down. So the run-up which has happened last 3 months, I think for 6% odd it has gone up Reliance, which is there. So I'm not sure how much more upside is going to be there because after today's 3-4% rally, but there is this thing of that the petchem business will start. The capex has been very high, 36,000 crores they have done it, and they are saying that in Jio the capex may have peaked, but in OTC and new energy I think 1.3 lakh crores is what they are planning, right?
Planning, yes.
So essentially what you would want to see from a Reliance now is the cash flow from operations start to go up. Because we've not seen that in significant fashion.
That is true because the entire last capex which they had put in for O2C, they went through a down cycle which has not been able to get the kind of cash flows they were expecting.
Correct.
The O2C was supposed to get in a certain chunk of the entire capex, cash flows, positive free cash flows, which was supposed to be deployed into the new energy,
New energy
other
business and
businesses.
renewables part of the
And
business.
because of the down cycle which is happening and uncertainty in the last 2 years because of various wars and other stuff, the free cash flows has not been to the expectation. So hopefully now they're saying that they are putting in much more. They're going to get more ethane from US. That's good in one sense because it helps India-US trade deficit. And and I think by FY27 is when they're expecting the petchem, the capex to play out and get operationalized, so that revenue comes in there. So yeah, it's another 2-3 year cycle which is there for them, and new energy will take some time to get something.
Yeah, so you want to start to see that happen before.
Yeah, because today if you look at 235 points, which is Nifty up, nearly 90 points is coming from Reliance. Yeah, simple as that.
And the rest of it is again from the banks. But what is interesting, Sajeet, from the banking aspect is that from a technical perspective, your analysts are expecting a pretty range-bound trade in terms of Bank Nifty and Bank Nifty components. They are seeing consolidation. And that's not really seen in terms of your private banking space yet today. And you have your PSUs which are yet to report, your large cap PSUs are yet to report earnings, right? So for that matter, an SBI is yet to come out. There is some bit of shift that is starting to happen from the private banking space to the PSU banking space. So there are green shoots emerging there as well. Now, if that transition happens in terms of buying interest from private into PSUs, I think that's when you will see that Bank Nifty starting to cool off.
You know, one interesting thing which is there is that, as Hersh was pointing out, small cap or smaller banks are showing the pain which is there, and NBFCs as well. I'm including NBFC. So IDFC first said that this is a peak for the the cost which is there with respect to MFI.
They've been saying it for the last 2 quarters.
2 quarters. But now Shriram Finance had the similar. They're into CV financing, right?
Yes.
They also had a very muted earnings, which is there. Then
Chola also,
Poonawalla.
So generally Chola, and I asked the management also this. They generally have a better Q4 than a Q3 when it comes to credit cost. But this time around, credit costs have remained elevated in Q4 as well. When you look at, so there are certain pockets which they are planning to tone down. Like for example, retail unsecured is one space which they want to kind of cool off their lending in. So they basically want to ensure that that book is well provisioned. So they've used Q4 as the buffer quarter to make those provisions. They don't see any impact in FY26 as a result of
that. So even some of the banks, I think, if I'm not wrong, RBL is also talking the same thing.
Yes.
That they are toning down the unsecured book going forward.
That they've been doing for the last 2-3 quarters.
So a lot of financial services companies are now saying that we are not going to go into unsecured book. Jio, for that matter, they are saying हम तो secure ही करेंगे. Jio Financial, right? Means they've also they were the first to tone down in 3-4 quarter back, I think. And I think Bajaj also is talking about unsecured book coming down.
No, Bajaj is pretty much entirely unsecured, so that
no focus. So there are a couple of pockets which are only looking at the secured growth.
So one is Bajaj Housing, where there is a secured book, but Bajaj Finance otherwise outside of housing is completely unsecured.
And with that, then
but tell me, what is the impact of this Tamil Nadu legislation?
Yeah, I was just coming to that.
So that so frankly, honestly, on paper there may not be a very material impact. Sentimentally, the impact seems to be larger, at least on stock prices today. But otherwise, on paper, I don't see a material impact of this. Just like in Karnataka, most of this is concentrated around the lending which is not structured lending, which is not through banks, NBFCs, not through formal channels. It's the informal lending which is going to get impacted. Now, yes, there will be a cohort of NBFCs which are lending to some of these pockets which do informal lending thereafter. Which may see some bit of impact.
But this does not directly impact the NBFCs. They are not a part of the bill,
correct,
right?
Absolutely. So it won't directly impact NBFCs. But so like in Karnataka, you might see growth come off as a result of
basically
this. So there are 2 things
which is happening, right? One, it is only going to impact non-RBI regulated entities.
Correct.
Right, collection and distribution agents, which could be chit funds or the local money lenders and that kind of stuff, right?
Correct.
Because they are putting in clauses like you can have 3 years of imprisonment and other stuff, which is there. The second thing which is there is the formalization of the lending,
Correct.
which is there, is pushing people. You are basically making it tough for non-RBI regulated entities to lend. In the process, you are saying that okay, you push your people to the formal channel, which is there.
Correct.
But in the interim, which we saw in Karnataka, there will be pain because the collection is going to be difficult because
Correct.
the system has to recognize that X is a RBI regulated entity and Y is not a RBI regulated entity, and that will make sure that anyone who goes to the door for collection and they will dial 100 saying that someone has come in disturbing me. Simple as that. So there is going to be a slowdown in terms. So many of the small finance banks will be hit.
So tell me the list.
47%. I'm just pulling that out. So Equitas 47%, L&T Finance 22%, Suryodaya is 20%, Credit Access Grameen is 20%, Ujjivan is 13-14 odd percent, Jana Small Finance Bank is 13%, AU Small Finance Bank's entire MFI portfolio is 12%. So some of these might see a bit of an impact, especially
so 12 to 20% of your book is that
so
coming from Tamil Nadu.
Coming from Tamil Nadu, maybe exclude
the microfinance book coming in from.
Microfinance.
So this is only the microfinance book, not concentrated to Tamil Nadu.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And when you talk about the overall exposure that Tamil Nadu, I was just reading one of your emails which said the total AUM in the microfinance space is something 50,000 odd crores.
Second largest comes
right?
from
Tamil Nadu.
Versus
So if you have to take that number into consideration, how big a hit is to the microfinance space as a whole?
So again, Hiral, extremely difficult to say because 50,000 crore is the MFI portfolio of banks and NBFCs. जो भी unregulated entities है, उसका तो पता ही नहीं है कि कितना बड़ा है. So I'm not sure how big a hit it is. But the way I think what we should look at is in the short term and in the long term. In the short term, there may be some pain, like Sajeet sir said, but in the long term, it's all positive because you'll see a lot of the people who are borrowing from informal channels shift to the formal channel, and therefore lenders with good credit record will always do better. And we've seen this, right? So whenever there is a concentration in a particular geography, in a particular sector, we've seen it with Bandhan, 45% Northeast, we've seen it in various cycles. So wherever you have extreme concentration, unless you are a pristine quality and underwriting, you have pristine quality and underwriting standards, you will take a hit at some point.
Okay, so tell me one thing. The moment when you are saying it will move from unorganized to organized, let's look at the other side of it. Who will be the beneficiaries then?
The beneficiaries will be the exact same list that I have given right now, but they will have some bit of pain. Some may have more pain, some may have less.
The problem is
depending on quality, which is what I was saying.
I would say it's not a problem, it's a challenge for these companies is that the people who are coming from the informal sector and getting into the formal sector, there won't be any credit history with them.
Correct.
So it's there could be some starving of capital if they require smaller businesses or something.
Correct.
So that is the only challenge which could come in terms of means ऐसा नहीं होगा कि if the informal economy is 3x or 4x, that entire 4x comes into the formal economy. It's not going to happen in one go. It will happen gradually, and the way if all these names which you mentioned have good technology and metrics in place to identify and give loans, then it's easier to capture that kind of market which is there.
Correct. Producers have told us to give likes. Please hit like. We sincerely appreciate it. It helps us make a bigger impact, which is why we spend this time and which is why we bring Hiral on the show. Please, 50 likes for Hiral.
Okay.
Yes, guys, then only I'm going to be allowed for the next couple of days, otherwise I'm barred.
M&M Isuzu acquisition.
I think I'm happy for M&M, but I don't know, I had my doubts, Sajeet, as I was discussing with you as to what happens to SML Isuzu's shareholders, because yes, the stock has moved up quite a bit. The second aspect is How does the value creation happen? Because they are not they're not planning to delist SML, right? It continues to stay listed on the bosses. So as a combined entity also, in terms of value creation, I don't see a roadmap on that aspect. Because, I mean, even in spite the stock moving up 20-30% or more, you're talking about an open offer, which is at a 12 to 13% discount.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the overall purchase, which has happened at a 60% discount, right? So that match, I don't see. And I think majority will tender to the open offer, taking that 13% into consideration, and that the company is listed.
True. I think from a parent point of view, which is Sumitomo and Isuzu, they have sold out the entire thing at a steep discount, 63%, as you said. But I think they were in discussion with them for a longer time. See, Japanese companies are very difficult to negotiate and very difficult to close a transaction. It takes years before the transaction can close. So
and they've done it. Credit to them.
I've seen a couple of Japanese transactions happening. It takes time. They will procrastinate on that transaction and then finally they do it. And by the time the price would have run up. So the price which they have given could have been the price which they've been talking to these investors for some time, and they would have done no, I don't know when they started the entire negotiation.
No, they've said this, so you're right. So I'll quote what they've said. M&M has been looking at this acquisition for a while, and this is from the con call, right?
Yeah,
so just
correct.
giving perspective. Second, deal didn't make sense earlier at 650 rupees. Now, at the same price of 650 rupees, it makes sense, which is why they, 650 crore.
Yeah.
It makes sense now. That's basically what they've said.
What is M&M getting?
So it's a fair
M&M
deal.
is not going to get any market share in the commercial vehicle side.
Yes.
But it's going to get entry into the commercial vehicle buses
segment.
segment, MHCV, where this market share can go up to 6% from 2.5%, which is there. Now the question is how scalable it is for them, because they're going to keep it as a separate entity. They have to bring in again.
And the brand recall for your pickup trucks of SML Isuzu, I mean, I don't think so. Probably my liking for a 4x4 was always actually started with the SML Isuzu 4x4 pickup
been
truck.
able to scale it up, right?
No, but I think they have it's like your Royal Enfield cult following. It's the cult following with the Isuzu
So
as
you're
well.
the market Hiral, but I don't think there are too many of you out there.
Not that I drive an Isuzu, given the opportunity.
FY 25, let's look at the numbers, right? FY 25, they had a top line of 2100 odd crores. For 9 months, it's around 1600 crores. So they're going to do a lower revenue closure for FY 25.
No, but think about it, Sajeet. With everything said and done, the way I think M&M is looking at it is
A long-term play.
A long-term play where SML Isuzu will be able to use M&M's expertise in terms of scaling up, in terms of operations, and M&M is able to use SML Isuzu's expertise in terms of the tech part of it, the EV part of it. I think that's the play I'm looking at both these companies, because SML Isuzu as a play itself probably didn't get that opportunity or didn't have that bandwidth to scale, which M&M will be able to give them.
So
I mean, think about our Swaraj engines also, right?
So there is little more things which we need to look into, and they haven't disclosed it.
Correct.
If you look at very clearly, this is the agreement between Mahindra and Sumitomo and Mahindra
Isuzu.
And both the parties have an shareholder agreement which requires some commercial deals to be done, right? In that sense, whether it's they have a export market or whatever, those kind of stuff which is there. We don't know exactly what those commercial deals are, because it just mentions there that the company is not part of those commercial deals. It's between Mahindra and
Sumitomo and
Isuzu, which is there. But the point is that yes, in the long term point of view, it will take at least 2 years for Mahindra to turn it around. they have enough facilities there which can be used as a expansion.
You talk about the dealerships, right?
Yes.
Automatically, SML Isuzu's portfolio will get the dealership
of Mahindra,
M&M.
M&M, yeah.
So
Yeah,
your reach in terms of market share automatically increases, and I'm sure in terms of manufacturing bandwidth, M&M is already on an expansion spree.
And
So it will not be difficult for
and
them.
CV is a place where they don't have much of a play there,
Correct.
especially buses.
Buses,
So,
EV buses is what I'm talking
Exactly.
about.
Yeah.
They don't have any market share there.
See,
So
I mean, think
everything
about
is
it.
incremental.
Tractors,
but SML
leader.
has a EV?
Yes,
yes, absolutely, and
EV
that's
bus
yeah,
है
EV
already.
bus है.
देखा है हमने बॉम्बे रोड्स पे देखा है. मैंने तो एटलीस्ट बॉम्बे रोड पे देखा.
100% है. And if you think about it, what they did with tractors, in spite of being market leaders, the deal with Swaraj engines, right? The way they have been able to expand reach with Swaraj engines, phenomenal. What they are doing with the EV space, and if you think about SML Isuzu, if it becomes a similar play, and I think this was the strategy that M&M had with SsangYong as well, right?
Yes. But it did not work
It
out.
was that was a different scenario altogether. Though they left SsangYong to be a separate entity at that point in time.
Even and the fact that they were not able to get enough of the technology here. I mean, they tried bringing in 1 or 2 products here, right? But it didn't work out, and then they had to
Let it go.
Simple as
But
that.
this is going to be probably. But staying with M&M, Sajeet, Maruti, I want your view on this one because
yes.
it's a very.
I was a little surprised with the Maruti numbers, despite
See, yes, there is a one-off. If you talk
there's
about the EBITDA,
so there's a commodity cost which is now sinking into all the
earnings, right?
Earnings which
Yes,
is there.
yes.
We saw that happening in FMCG. Now we are seeing it in auto, and the biggest problem is that the price movement or price pass through is not happening completely.
That is one, and plus they've been in spite of the kind of price hikes Maruti has taken. If you think about it, I think from Jan to now, I think 3 or 4 price hikes they've already taken.
Yeah.
Obviously, that will, I mean, and that will be effective this quarter. So maybe you might see some bit of a turnaround from a margin perspective. But there was also a one-off in terms of Maruti numbers for one of their plant. So that is what is putting pressure on the margin profile.
So that's depreciation has come
correct,
for that.
on that one.
But point is that the depreciation will be there every quarter, right? It's not a
Correct.
one-off. actually.
But
It's
my
added
question,
every quarter.
but
So
my thing, Sajeet, over here is, what about the coming year? Because it's a twofold strategy now. One, if you think about it, they are trying to position themselves on the EV side with the new launches that they've already planned, right? So is that something which will play in their favor? And second is their domestic play is a major downer. FY26, I mean, they've come out and said it's going to be flat.
Yes.
Export business is what is doing well.
Yes.
So will you put your bets on the export business and the EV new launches in the future? Or will you look at the domestic play? How do you weigh in on this one?
Let's look at the EV play now. We have Mahindra, which has come out with 3 products, which is there, and it's picking up.
But that's super luxury.
True.
34 lakhs, 35 lakhs. Like,
Top
I
end,
agree.
top end.
Yeah.
Means top end.
They will come down to
नीचे
the price
वाला
line, which is
cheaper
there.
है ना?
Then you
कितना?
have the Tatas, which is in the lower end and mid end, which is there, and that is also picking up, which is there. Maruti has been slow,
very slow.
very slow to get into this segment. Basically on an argument saying that अरे चार्ज करने का जगह कहाँ होता है लोगों को तो क्यों चाहिए.
So, to be very honest, a year and a half when I spoke to RC Bhargav, I remember this 20-minute interaction.
He was giving this
He said, I just hate EVs. He was not in favor of EVs. And he said, hybrid bhi humko karna pada hai. That was his view at that point in time, right? Probably it's a late realization now.
Yeah, it's going to happen, right? But even after that, the kind of volume growth which they're predicting is very flat. So they're basically saying that our volume growth will be led by exports. If that is the scene, then I see.
But which
a
markets
fair
are they
trade
going to
happening between
export to?
Maruti and Hyundai. Simple as that. Because Hyundai also does a lot of exports, right? Domestic market में अगर सबका इन दोनों का अगर growth अगर flat होने वाला है और exports की basis में है तो Hyundai has a much better export market than Maruti at this point in time.
But export पे क्या? E-Vitara and Jimny, these are the 2 models that they are banking on in terms of the export market.
That is the EV. EV के लिए वो कर रहे हैं पर exports के लिए कहाँ उन्होंने बताया नहीं ना.
नहीं, they've said they're only looking at ramping up E-Vitara and Jimny with regards to exports. Those
So
two
then
models.
these two has to come into the market. Jimny already is not so big.
Jimny is not even for the Indian markets.
in
It's
India,
not.
it's not
They
even.
and they've
But abroad
categorically,
it's
but they've
doing okay.
categorically said that Jimny is not for the Indian markets. They've said Jimny is mainly for the export markets. तुमको availability भी नहीं मिलेगा इधर.
पहले तो प्लान था इधर करने का,
यहीं पे तो लॉन्च हुआ था.
हाँ, but for the export market.
थार अभी थार के साथ compete नहीं कर पा रहे हैं तो बोल रहे हैं ऐसे, but earlier तो it was brought.
But I think their product mix has to change. बीच में I think in Jan Feb they were talking about कि there is a slight demand coming in the lower end of the thing of the vehicles, which is the smaller cars, which is there. But I don't think that is a way to sustain for them. They will have to push new launches. Their launches has to be more than 2 to get.
But I think no. So that's no. The pipeline, Sajeet, is very strong, and SUV pipeline is looking strong.
No, so there are 3 things which market is looking at. One, how the market margins is going to play out from here, because they have not been able to push the entire costs across, though they have taken an April hike as well, which is there. Second, the market share. They are bound to the street is assuming a fall in market share
versus a Hyundai
or other players in the market making, because you have the Mahindras, you have the Tata, everyone now going aggressive.
I think that gap between the first and the second is any which way is narrowing.
This is going to come in. And the third one is the volume growth. If domestic they are not able to push it, will the export be able to make good
for the domestic?
So ये 3 चीजें जो हैं वो markets देख रहा है.
So this is going to be interesting
Yeah,
if you also look at M&M, and plus this week in fact you have the auto sales data that will come in as well. So I think that entire pack is going to be in focus. थोड़ा interest होएगा autos के लिए ये week में.
Yes. So there are 2 questions we have so far. One is by Dr. B. View on Ather IPO. Do you have any?
Not really as of now, but I think
loss making.
so. I think they have, if I'm not mistaken, Sajeet will be the best one because he's the
good
adda for
track.
IPOs anyways.
No,
but in terms, they've already cut down in terms of their valuation, right?
They have.
So with the current valuation, also, do you think it will be overvalued?
So the point is that they, if I'm not wrong, in September of 2024, they came out with the preferential issue to some of the investors at 370 rupees per 73 per share, per preference share actually. On conversion it becomes 267. Now the IPO is between 305 to 321, which is there. So there is a slight premium they have gone and asked. And
does the market share warrant that?
The market share is around 10 to 11%, and they're claiming that in the last 2-3 months it has gone to 13 to 15% in some of the pockets.
Which is still
half of Ola.
Let's
put it there. So the valuation is also coming exactly around half of Ola.
But at any which ways, Ola को Bajaj ने already overtake कर लिया है, right? In the two-wheeler space.
So Ola is around 30.
No, I'm not saying overall, but still I think this on a monthly basis, on a monthly basis.
TVS is 18 and they are into 10-11 on a quarterly market share basis, which is there. But issue वहाँ पर ये है कि इसमें the model is totally different. They have a very capital light model where they have the IPR for all the items. The only thing they assemble is the battery pack or module. Lithium ion, everything is something which they import from overseas. They're saying that in the next two quarters or so, Amara Raja will start supplying us the batteries. So the indigenization comes into play in there. So, and as scale up happens, there could be a path to profitability because EBITDA margins have come. So gross margins have risen from 9 to 19% on a year-to-year basis for them. But I don't see profitability coming in FY26. FY27 could be, but the kind of revival that Rizza has given them, it's phenomenal. Means they have just changed the profile, they've changed the product, and that has given them a good leeway in southern markets where, especially, and in the northern markets where family-owned are driving. This is a little big, so the family can sit and other stuff which is there. They're coming out with a new platform and bike platform which is coming. They haven't given a timeline for it, but I think this is so. It's not at the inflated end of the valuation like Ola.
It's still higher.
It's still higher because there's no profitability path which we can see, except for the gross margin which is positive at this point in time. It's a bet on electric vehicle for people who want to do it. and at this point in time,
I think the game will be how much market share they're able to garner now versus the TVS Bajaj.
Yes.
Because, in Jan, Feb, and I think March as well,
I don't
there
see
have
them-
been months where Bajaj has overtaken Ola.
I don't see them taking over anything from Bajaj and TVS because Bajaj and TVS have an integrated distribution platform, ICE and EV together.
Will they take over from Ola, taking into consideration?
नहीं इतना difficult बहुत difficult है अगर जो होगा तो Ola means Bajaj and TVS will be doing that first.
No, I'm not saying take over to the extent that you become number one.
नहीं वो नहीं होगा.
I'm saying
So
take
they are-
over
they are-
little
they will
from
be-
everywhere where they are playing in the second and third category.
They are playing for the 15% now.
Correct.
तो 10 to 11% अभी है वो 15% के लिए खेल रहे हैं अभी.
Correct.
और 15 से वो 20 कब जाएंगे उसके लिए अलग
वो
से-
अगर
वो
आगे का है.
So they're the fourth largest player.
So okay, let's put it this way, for the benefit of the viewer or respected doctor who's asked this question. Sorry, I don't know his
Dr.
name.
B.
Dr. B is, if you have to, let's compare a TVS, Bajaj Auto, Ola, and Ather's valuations, current wala. Basis that, I would say Ather is still attractive, probably.
Yeah, it is. It seems like it doesn't have any overhangs.
Correct, exactly.
That's what it means basically. Unlike Ola, where there are a lot of overhangs coming in every day or on expansion of that thing. I don't have a view on the product as such because I haven't tried it, but I'm looking from the kind of noises which are coming in from the market which is there. But they've still been able to sell 24,000
units.
And these guys are selling around 11 to 12.
And I think April first 3 weeks, I think I was reading some report where Ola has said they've already surpassed what TVS and Bajaj has done. So I think April itself, it seems they will continue to remain market leaders. So yeah, the question is, valuations are high from what Sajeet is saying, but as compared to their listed players, they are still a little more attractive. So probably there could be some value.
Can they become profit making soon, sir?
नहीं इस FY26 तो नहीं लग रहा है. Means
soon in the sense maybe 2-3
soon
years.
क्या होता है?
FY28.
Medium term.
FY28.
I think in the FY28 they can be a profitable one, but I won't look at it from that point of view because this is an emerging technology and it changes every year. The way it
and
is.
hence that is a risk actually.
That is the biggest. So that's the biggest risk for any new energy company. Whether it's a risk for Waaree Energy because your solar module, the cells, or whether it's a monocrystalline or popcorn or other. These technologies change, right? Now Reliance is coming out with something which is 720 watt power cells which are there, right? Means if it is a game changer, then it will change the entire dynamics of the of the entire solar storage industry which is there. So I'm trying to say that new energy may. The faster you get to a cash flow positive number, the better it is. If you're slow in getting it, then the technology comes in, drags you. Simple as that.
Right.
Perfect.
एक है मेरे लिए है मेरे ख्याल से. Now that 5 large cap IT companies are out, please rank TCS, Infi, HCL, Wipro, Tech Mahindra. Okay.
I think HCL number 1.
No, I will say TCS number 1, followed by HCL, then Infi, then Tech Mahindra, and then Wipro.
Okay.
Based on the commentary and the earnings which have come in that form, because HCL was much more positive than Infi. Wipro was bad numbers. Tech Mahindra was very impressive, but they have to reach that milestone by FY27, which is there. So that's a preference. TCS, HCL, Infi, Tech Mahindra, Wipro, which is there. IRCTC. They're saying your views on IRCTC. Online ticket sales can now grow at what percentage in future?
To be very honest, I think that's where the game is going to be in terms of online ticketing. I think it will be more in terms of the F&B business for IRCTC. Is my view versus your ticketing, because the margins are higher on your F&B versus your ticketing, right? So I would recommend looking at
the right opportunities. So when I traveled the last time I did by train, which is not too long ago, maybe 2-3 months back, the F&B was amazing. But the thing is that can they continue to grow that share in the way that they have over the last
they have a
couple of
near
years
monopoly in
now.
railway ticketing,
Railways, right.
And they get what 25-30 rupees per ticket or something, which is the kind of which is there, But
But a lot of their margins, Sajeet, on that business go away to your aggregators as well, right? Because when you book on a Make My Trip or you book on any of these platforms, automatically वो margin तो उनको चला जाता है, right?
नहीं उतना नहीं आता है, वो उनको उतना ही मिलता रहता
जो हाँ नहीं, but थोड़ा तो उसमें से निकलता रहेगा on that aspect. So because initially they've been growing, but if you see in terms of IRCTC at one point in time, you would only be able to book ticket trains on IRCTC. It's been the last few years. But last few years, not, I wouldn't say from the beginning. Last few years where all your aggregators are able to book your train tickets as well.
Between 21 and 22 was more than double, 2.5. Then was double.
So they're growing at 5
but
to 8%.
after that,
it's stagnating.
5 to 8% growth.
10,
So,
But 5 to 8% growth for a railways is, I would say, it's a decent growth coming in.
Now,
Because
unless new lines are added and new bogies and new trains and new routes and all of that gets added, then it's a different case.
Ticketing commissions remain the same, na?
No, but sir, the number of
trains that increase, the number of passengers traveling increase, right?
Once a week, Bombay, Bangalore, but now it becomes every day.
And but that's the reason why I would say that your F&B part of the business, if that grows well for them, I think that's what will do the wonders overall. So I think it's a pure play bet for me in to look at the F&B part of the revenues. Not that I'm very sure of how much comes in yet. I think this is a thought that he's given me to ponder upon.
I think it's an 80-20, if I recall right. And this was a couple of years back when
ticketing and 20 years.
Couple of years back. Sorry.
This becomes like a theatre play. I would compare this to a theatre.
Catering is 47% FY24 versus 27% FY22.
See?
This is
so, and that's what I'm saying. So, Sajeet, let's compare this to a theatre. It's exactly a similar play coming in ticket prices versus F&B prices, right? तो तुम वही play को compare करके IRCTC को देखो.
Has gone down from 54% in FY22 to 30% in FY24. They're doing very well in tourism, which was at 10% in FY22, now sitting at 16% in FY24.
Which is the bulk tourism which they're doing.
Yes. Rail Neer has gone down in terms of mix. So Rail Neer is not doing
water business, which is there.
So ये 3-4 business है. काफी interesting है, frankly, because the stock I don't think has done much in the last 3 years at least.
In fact, railways have not done too much in the last 2 to 3 years. I think since.
And if you compare that with IRCTC with other internet players, I think it's trading at a very steep discount. Discount to them. Though the model is very robust, very different and very robust as well. Simple as that.
2021 से कुछ नहीं किया है ये स्टॉक ने. अक्टूबर 2021 से अभी 4.5 साल हो गए.
उस समय वो हाइट 1 लाख करोड़ के मार्केट के ऊपर जाके आया था.
हाँ. उस समय. A peak of optimism.
Yeah. Aparna Gandhi has a question for you, Hersh. What is your long-term view on Ujjivan and AU Small Finance?
Frankly, Aparna, very tough to call because these are such fast-growing franchisees. You want to continue to look at how their processes are working across cycles, right? That's generally how you look at a bank. And they operate also in a relatively higher risk cohort. There are some banks where they operate at a lower risk cohort, which are more predictable in that sense, in terms of profitability and in terms of how they will evolve. But these banks, that's where the question mark lies. Now, can you trust management commentary? Likely. And therefore, maybe you should continue to look at management commentary and see whether what the management is actually saying is getting delivered in numbers or not. Last few quarters have been tough for them, so there is a negative bias on some of these. But when you're looking at relative numbers, or rather relative valuations, you will find a couple of pockets within banking where you will find relative valuations compared to risk better off than these two. So that's just the broader thesis. These can grow faster than those other smaller banks which are relatively safer. These can grow faster than those. But they also carry higher risk. So it's a little bit of balance which you have to really consider.
Very interesting question, Hiral. It's all about the fun. Is asking us views on Rapido entering food delivery. Their priority is under 250 rupees order in 5 kilometer radius.
This is going to be interesting because I think, if I'm not mistaken, Rapido is already doing this service for a Swiggy. So Swiggy is an investor in Rapido. Rapido is doing this, though they don't have any exclusivity clause for Swiggy. And in fact, recently news had come in where they were talking to Zepto as well in terms of the delivery aspect of it. Now, probably they may be able to scale up, taking into consideration the kind of reach they already have.
So it's basically the transportation logistics part of it which they're looking at, right?
Yes.
It's not the back end part of it.
No, not the back end part of it.
Now, if you look at, put everything into perspective, in Q4, at the end of Q4, we had around 150 cities where you had quick delivery and coming in, and more than 150 mein food delivery tha, basically. What Rapido is trying to do is provide logistics services to Swiggy, like a quick delivery player or others which is there. But if you look at the quick delivery as a whole, it is going to face a big challenge in coming days, because you have Reliance, which is now talking about JioMart, to deliver under 30 minutes. And that may work more, because this under 10 minutes to hota hi nahi hai kuch kabhi bhi. But point is that in 30 minutes, and they don't need to put a dark store, right? They have 2,100 stores which form their dark stores, or their form back-end stores which is there. So I think that is a competition which is going to come in for many of the quick commerce players, which is there.
No capex, right?
No capex is required, right? They already have the capex done. Their stores are already there.
Yeah.
It's basically off-shelf, off-store sales, which is coming in.
It's similar to what an ONDC was trying to do.
Exactly.
But it's a different thing that they failed. I mean,
This
for
is
whatever
still an
reasons.
experiment which is going
That's
on.
what I'm saying. So not worked yet for them, but yeah.
Final question.
ONDC, frankly, practically, and Hiral and we were sitting in a conversation a few days back. It looks in general also a little difficult on a ground level. The way implementation is happening.
Implementation they had there, it was an aggregator for a buyer and a lender.
There are
But that
plenty
is a
of
marketplace,
difficulties.
Yeah, but marketplace is it's not integrated across the three channels. The integration is between ONDC and your buyers,
And ONDC,
ONDC and your payment side of it. So it's very segregated. So I mean, that's one of the reasons why it's not working.
So there are these constraints, there are these challenges which need repairing if
but
ONDC were to work.
I see this space developing in a big way, because in this budget we had the finance minister talking about creating an integrated logistic player through postal services.
Okay, that's India Post.
India Post, which, right? And today every e-commerce company says we reach 99% of the
PIN codes.
Right? So if these PIN codes are already can be channelized into logistics services, you have a game changer which is coming in.
100%.
So Piyush Srivastava, L&T Finance, and upcoming Bajaj Twins results, can it be good buy after seeing the rally when market fell, but they remain intact? Yeah.
So L&T Finance, the key risk at least, so the results were decent, frankly. Maybe slight negative if at all, but also the positive side is that that FY26 looks far better in comparison to an FY25. So what they've guided for in FY26 is that they'll move towards that 2.8% ROA, which is quite positive. But the negatives essentially is the fact that Tamil Nadu may pass this bill which we've spoken about at length. So I won't further speak about that. So maybe that's one overhang. With regard to L&T Finance, also there has to be some bit of proven capability which has to start coming through, which has to start showing on the numbers, which is not yet seen. So maybe a couple of those overhangs. Where a Bajaj Finance and Finserv are concerned, I think FY25 is a washout year in any case. The numbers would be concerning for two reasons, if at all it were to play out this way. One, if credit costs continue to remain elevated in Q4 as well, they've guided for a taper. If it were to remain elevated, then there could be a concern. Second, I would be more keen on listening to what the management is saying in terms of commentary. Now Rajiv Jain has left, he's made way. What's the new management talking about? How are they going to speak? What are they going to say is going to hold the key. And therefore,
Rajiv Jain is still in an executive role, right?
Yes.
Executive
He's
role.
Executive Vice Chairman.
Yeah, so he's still in an executive role, but in the sense that he's taken a bit of a step back. He's not going to run Bajaj Finance at its core, and therefore how does the new management address questions, analyst concerns, growth? What is the FY26 expectation? Because the stock has outperformed. From 6,600 in October of 2024, stock is currently sitting at 9,000 rupees.
Correct.
It's already given a sizable return. In that sense.
And the overhang has moved out.
50% return when markets are down nearly 10%. So it's been a 60% outperformance which Bajaj Finance has already done. What next is really the question.
Is there room for more?
So, okay. I'm not sure if there's room for more or not.
No,
but what I'll do is I'll just spell out the price to book.
Let me rephrase it. We have the earnings going to come in for both the companies, Bajaj Twins, and based on the earnings, do you see the valuations leaving enough room for upside?
Yeah, so I'll just touch upon the valuation. So around 1,500 is the current price to book. Stock is at around 9,000. Trailing 12 months is 1,500 rupees. As-pass, okay, give or take some. But 1,500 rupees is the price to book. So 6 times trailing 12 months is the price to book, which is expensive for an NDFC.
Yeah.
It does around 250 to 300 rupees in terms of EPS. So when I'm looking at it 1 year forward, it's around 5 times, which is at a sharp discount to its past averages.
Past average कितना है था?
Around 6.5 का past average है. So when I'm looking at it 1 year forward, it's still at maybe a 20% odd discount. But at the same time, the run up has been sharp. So it's
And the overhang.
It's a very difficult.
It's a iffy.
Management overhang, the RBI overhang, everything is out. Over.
Yes, that's true. So some of that is out.
So unless they come out and say that okay, the growth is going to be little more muted, or they're going to be holding back on some of the unsecured, because
Correct.
Entire industry is not talking
Now
about
talking
unsecured.
Correct.
How they're going to curb unsecured, and they also come and say that okay, we're going to be little more
Then
cautious.
it's a problem.
Then the growth is not going to be there.
Yeah,
Then what we are talking about, the 5 times to 6 times will not happen. It could
Correct.
become 4.5, 4,
Enough, yeah.
which is there. Chalo, ठीक है. So we are anyways we
Yeah,
have overshot our time
massively.
and Nifty is up 1.25% as we close.
Yeah.
And Reliance and ICICI Bank and HDFC are the ones.
So
which
good
are
way to
IT,
start
the
week.
pressure
It's
is
been a
IT has been
fabulous
stable. April month.
It's
Yeah.
been a fabulous month in April.
Yeah,
so
means if you look at April as a 3.47%,
we've said this in the past at the start of April that
that April is going to be a good one.
is generally a good month.
Good one.
Difficult to call,
3.5%
but yeah.
jump in April alone. And this comes on the back of 6.3% jump in March.
Yeah. And the average.
But still, your last couple of.
Average is
returns,
2.4%.
Except July, April is the second best. We had highlighted this also, 10-year average. I remember highlighting this. So yes, we had highlighted this also.
Perfect.
Okay,
So
guys.
that's a
Thank
wrap
you
for
very
much.
much.
Thank
We'll
you
see
guys
you
for
tomorrow.
And please hit likes if you like me on the show.
And subscribe.
चले भागे
ओवर टाइम हो गया भाई.
चलो